Is it a toxic environment? Maybe the environment is why they've had so much success in the past. I think this is what's happened. I think Dan Mullen. I don't think Dan Mullen cares to be at Florida anymore, and this is why. I think Dan Mullen was expected to leave to get a better job last year. If you remember, there was a lot of rumblings about him taking an NFL job with the Cowboys, and I forget what the other teams were in the NFL. But I think Dan Mullen was expected to get that NFL job, and I think I would guess that he was all in on it. And then once he was all in, and then didn't get it, and then had to come back to Florida. Everything that happened at the end of the year when it came to the LSU game and not executing well, the horrible defense, and Mullen not making a decision to fire Grantham and the defensive staff. The post-game press conference after Oklahoma, when Oklahoma, your guys all didn't play, your Kadarius Toney, your Kyle Pitts, so on and so forth. They didn't play. And then you say after the game, that's not the Florida team. Meanwhile, that team that went against Oklahoma are the same guys that are playing right now, all those underclassmen. You kind of set the precedent. I feel like it's kind of carried its way, and Mullen's attitude hasn't been the same. And I think that it's going to be – I think it's mutual. I think Mullen doesn't want to stay in Florida, and Florida doesn't want Mullen. As weird as it is to say when Mullen just got an extension in the summer. I see a couple of head coaching comments. Kevin Carter as a CEO type, hire his staff. Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin's been jumping around for the head coaching spot. Yeah, I don't know what Florida will do. Honestly, it's 100% up in the air. Again, if you're just joining us, Steve Spurrier yesterday on a show, College Sports Day, with Terry Norvell, who Terry's been on this postgame show, the Gators Final Report. As you can see, this is Dylan Denmark. You can follow me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. And this is at the Voice of College Football. Steve Spurrier said, and he wasn't asked this, he just said this. And if you know anything about Spurrier is well calculated. And Spurrier just doesn't blow smoke. He said, quote, "Nobody knows exactly what the coaching situation is right now. Nobody is talking about it. I think it depends on what happens in these next two games." Steve Spurrier, a guy that played at the University of Florida, won a Heisman, coached at Florida, took them to what they are now for a decade, took them to 2 national titles, coached them to a second Heisman Trophy, and makes them relevant. So you can take that as a backdrop. Basically meaning Mullen's not going to be there for long. And then after the Georgia game, I was listening to Matt Hayes on 1010XL, flagship station for the Florida Gators in Jacksonville. I interned on this show 2 summers ago. If Matt Hayes says something, there's a lot of truth to it. Matt Hayes said after the Georgia game this season, Dan Mullen had a team meeting, and there were a lot of players that pushed back against him because Florida has a heavy upperclassmen team with 6-year seniors with COVID, 5th-year seniors redshirt, and obviously your 4-year guys. Mullen didn't like it. I don't know if they bickered or if they pushed back. Apparently, rumor has it, Dan Mullen broke the podium and stormed out. And then he was asked the following presser, the following Monday, that he didn't do that stuff. Obviously, he did it. That was Sunday. The following week was the South Carolina game. So that was what I started the beginning of the show with, talking about everything around the Florida Gators and Dan Mullen, because everything that's built up is it started off the field with a recruiting violation, him meeting face-to-face with a recruit that he knew he shouldn't have. Goes to the season. You don't beat LSU when they have 55 scholarship players. Your team didn't show up because they were looking ahead to Alabama. Then you can't get a stop defensively. You don't show up against Oklahoma. You don't fire Todd Grantham and the defensive staff after the Oklahoma game when it was pretty evident that they weren't going to stay long. And if you wanted to do anything and win a national title, you had to get rid of those guys. Mullen didn't. The first month of the season, everything was well. You almost beat Alabama. You beat what looks like now a pretty good Tennessee team, and then Kentucky happens. And then LSU happens. Georgia's okay, Georgia. And South Carolina happens. Well, the team meeting where there was a lot of confrontation between the players and Mullen. The team meeting, South Carolina game happens following the team meeting. Samford, you give up half 100, and then tonight. Kiffin likely to go to Miami. I don't think so. I don't think he will. That was from Roland X. Yeah, 0-2-1 for the first time since '79. It's Florida's worst SEC record since the late '70s. Only won 2 games in the SEC against Tennessee and Vandy. Yeah, also another thing, if you're just joining us, Jed drops the comment talking about Rex Grossman from the Spurrier days, and maybe the current team needs to channel Brian Johnson. Yeah, so everything I just said about 2 minutes ago with the team unraveling, the recruiting violation that caused tension between the administration and Mullen, and also Brian Johnson leaving. Brian Johnson, from what I've heard on radio from guys that know the Florida football program well, Brian Johnson was the only guy that could tell Dan Mullen no. He was the only guy that could talk to him, and Dan Mullen would listen, and Dan Mullen would check his ego. Brian Johnson moves on to the NFL, goes to the Eagles. He's the quarterback coach. Apparently, he's going to be an NFL head coach in a couple of years. He'll be the next, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, eventually. And since then, your recruiting hasn't been what it was because Brian Johnson was the best recruiter, and also the quarterback developing, or the offense as a whole, really. Yes, Dan Mullen's the quarterback coach, and he coaches them, but also you also have to have a staff that helps with you, and it just hasn't been well. If Brian Johnson were probably still on staff, you probably ask the question: would Anthony Richardson just be playing? Would he have been playing since the Kentucky game and never sat out since? Who knows? Who knows if Johnson was the guy? Would AR be the guy all the way? Because I think the only reason Emory Jones starts is because of I think Mullen is falling under that Kirby Smart loyalty with Jake Fromm. I use the analogy. Kirby Smart didn't start Fields over Fromm because Kirby Smart he couldn't get over that Jake Fromm took him to a national title the year before, and he won all those games the following year, and he couldn't get over that. When in every other position, Kirby Smart plays the best guy. Dan Mullen and Kirby Smart did that because of loyalty. With Dan Mullen in this era where you can transfer, you can go wherever you want. Emory Jones stayed in Florida. He stayed behind Felipe Franks, and then he sat behind Kyle Trask. And I don't know what he feels, but I feel like he owes him. I'm not agreeing with this, but I think that he's been in the program for 4 years. I think Emory Jones lost his gamesmanship, and Florida should be rolling with Anthony Richardson, the better guy who's the generational talent. In a season that's been lost after the Georgia game, you just got to look to next season, and Emory Jones is not going to be your future, and AR is.